So yesterday there was some information that came out about some kind of disconnect between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni last season in Philadelphia. The report came out by Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler, an article on ESPN. But in light of that, Colin Cowherd shared some of his thoughts on the Herd yesterday.
But I was critical of Nick Sirianni because when he got the job, I called two sources. They said, not ready. A story emerges today from ESPN with multiple sources. He and Jalen Hurts does not respect his X's and O's, what I was told, and he's losing respect, and they don't get along. And not well liked. And we've watched him yell at fans, but remember his opening press conference.
Next thing that's very important to me is that we build a smart football team, that we have a smart football team here. And I know we have the people in place to do that. The first part of that, the first part of being smart is knowing what to do. We're going to have systems in place that are easier to learn. All right, complicated to the defense or offense that they're going against or the special teams group they're going against, but easy for us to learn. Because when we can put that, when we can learn our system and we can get good at our system, then our talent can take over.
Okay, enough. I'm exhausted. I don't know what that is. And that's what the team is when he lost his two coordinators. What the am I watching? What do they do well? It matters, knuckleheads. You're going to have moments in your life when you got to nail it, when you got to hit it, when you got to be great. There's not a lot of them, thank God. But those opening press conferences, Sean McVay, D'Amico Ryans, you're like, damn, this guy buttoned up. I mean, I'm in TV. I can talk all day long. That's what I do. I don't have a teleprompter. But this is what I'm trained for. Coaches aren't trained for that. And I'm not saying everybody that's slick behind a mic makes a great coach. But the story that emerges today is a little over his head, a little overwhelmed. Jalen Hurts doesn't like being alone with him. I'm just saying. Same thing I say about Wednesday press conferences for quarterbacks, especially young ones. You got that $7 million a year bank sponsorship sign behind you. It's the one press conference of the week that Fox and ESPN, we all run. Because half the time the locker room stuff, you can't make it out. The audio's terrible. But that Wednesday one, that's the one everybody uses. Look the part, be the part, speak the part, look into the camera, be smart, don't be argumentative. Diffuse, not ignite.
Okay, so I'm just thinking here, if you were a fan of the NFL, but for some reason you hadn't been paying attention for the past 3 seasons, and you had no idea about how the Eagles had played the past 3 years, and you watch this segment, I think you would think they are basically like the Carolina Panthers based on the way that this is being talked about. And the reality is that even though there do seem to be some issues, or there were some issues between Hurts and Sirianni and some disagreements, which I would assume happens from time to time when you go on some kind of losing streak. But in light of all that, Sirianni has led this Eagles team to be one of the best teams in the league the past couple seasons. Of course, they really struggled down the stretch last year. There's no doubting that. But they were 9-8 in Sirianni's first season, make it to the playoffs. They go 14-3, make it to a Super Bowl. Of course, they lose. And then last season, even though they struggled down the stretch, they were still 11-6. They did lose in the first round of the playoffs. But I just feel like there's a little bit too much heat on the Eagles right now than there needs to be. Like I get the way the season ended last year. I do think there is some pressure on this Eagles team. There's no doubt about that. But I think we have to remember, this is a team that just a year prior made it to Super Bowl with Nick Sirianni as the coach. So I don't think he's a terrible coach. He led this team to a Super Bowl, which most coaches in the NFL can't say that they have been able to do. But here, let's finish the rest of this.
I'm just saying. I know you think I'm a mean guy, but it's this story, this is what I heard when he got hired. And then I watched the presser, and I'm like, this guy doesn't know where he's going. Now you're finding out some of this stuff is, like, real. And Jalen Hurts is spotting it. Jalen Hurts, who comes from, Jalen Hurts comes from Nick Saban and Lincoln Riley, who can control a press conference. Nobody controls a press conference like Nick Saban. Like, he and McVay are at a different standard. Tomlin's great, too, by the way. But Lincoln Riley can get a little snippy, but he can control a press conference. Then you move into that. You can't blame Jalen Hurts for going, what's going on here?
Okay, so I don't fully think that, everything is perfectly fine in Philadelphia. I'm definitely not saying that. Clearly, after reading that article, there were a lot of issues last year, and you could see that in the way the Eagles played down the stretch. Things just were not going well. Even in light of that, they were the 7th best scoring offense in the NFL. They did struggle in the final 4 or 5 games as an offense, and the article brought up the disagreement that, Hurts and Sirianni had. So that is somewhat concerning, but I think that when you look at the fact that the Eagles have brought in Kellen Moore, and it sounds like from the article as well, a quote here, it says, in hiring former Dallas Cowboys and Chargers offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, Sirianni has assumed much more of a hands-off approach to the offense and given Hurts more space. So my guess is, based on all this, that the Eagles are going to be a really good team in 2024. I think that the issues they experienced last year aren't going to be as bad this year. I think their offense is going to be one of the best in the league. I guess my question is more so with the defense that was so bad last year. It's pretty shocking that the Eagles had the 30th ranked scoring defense in the NFL, and yet we're 11-6. That's a large part due to how good their offense still was last year. Still the 7th best scoring offense in the NFL. And so I do think Nick Sirianni deserves some sort of credit for the fact that he took this team to a Super Bowl in 2022, also led this team to 11-6 last year. Some people could argue, well, maybe it's in spite of Nick Sirianni, but you still can't deny the fact that he did lead this team to a Super Bowl. I think this year is big for him because let's say the Eagles have a somewhat good year, but lose in round 1 of the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles decided to go somewhere else outside of Nick Sirianni because he doesn't. He's not an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. And so I think that if the same struggles showed up and they make a playoffs and lose early, they may have to make a change there. But I honestly don't expect it to be as bad as it was last season. And it sounds like the issues between Hurts and Sirianni are somewhat a thing of the past. At least that's what they're making it sound like at this point. Now, if they go through another losing streak, that could cause some problems to be stirred up. I think anytime a team starts losing a ton, things just sort of go south lots of times. So we'll see what happens here coming into this 2024 season for the Eagles. But if you want more NFL content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.